It looks like we've begun. Good morning. It's Sunday, 9:30. This is the first YouTube live that I'm doing, and I just want to check to make sure the sound is working and everything is functioning properly. So let's do that first. Yes, so everything is working great. I trust that you've had a wonderful week. I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today in this live, since we are talking about whether or not positively focused is a cult. This is an important subject to bring up, especially in the first live, so that it is here for historical purposes. And of course, as with everything on this channel, I do this for my own amplification, for my own enjoyment, for my amplification of my own alignment to my broader perspective, so that more and more of what I'm wanting flows effortlessly into my life experience. And just for some logistics, I have the chat window open, and there will be opportunities for people to communicate with me, for those who have been subscribers at least a week, I believe it is. And then also, the reason why I'm looking down is because my computer is on my left where the streaming is happening, and then on my right when I'm looking down, actually on my right when I'm looking down is my computer, and then on my left when I'm looking down at my tablet, where there is a live version of the video so that I can see what's going on and coordinate everything correctly. So I'm just moving some things around here, some logistics. Okay. Before we get to the subject of the matter, I want to invite you to participate in my community. I have a YouTube community on the channel now, where people who have been subscribers can go there and see how I am applying the positively focused framework in my life. This entire channel is going to be the new space for my positively focused work. And so the community is going to be my version of what was the Positively Focused blog at positivelyfocused.co. What's cool about that community is I'll be able to communicate more regularly and more in real time than on the blog. And of course, I'll be able to feature videos and lives and things like that, and also answer your questions if you have any. So if you're interested in participating on the community, you can go to the channel and click on the community tab, and there you can see documentation of my own journey and ask me questions about the journey, or ask me questions about any of the videos on my YouTube channel. Okay, so that's that. I also want to test making a comment. So I'm going to make a comment to myself and see if that shows up here. Oh yeah, there it goes. Excellent. Okay, awesome. So everything's working perfectly. All right, let's talk about the subject matter. This is important. It's important to describe whether or not positively focused is a cult, because there are seemingly fantastic results that people get as a result of engaging with the positively focused framework. And since these lives are instruction, I'm going to be providing a lot more detail about that framework in the future, but I'm not going to do that now. The fantastical experiences that people are getting in this practice, including my own experiences, are not a result of me as some sort of leader. They are the result of people tuning in to their own alignment, to their own selves as leaders in their lives. And as a result of doing that, they produce the fantastic results that are promised in the positively focused practice. So I get it though. Because of the fantastical results that my clients are getting, it's easy for people to hear these things and slip into the defense or the argument that this is a cult. And I get it, because there are a lot of organizations, especially spiritual organizations that prey on, that seek out people who are matches. I was going to say prey, but prey is not the right word because that implies that something can happen to you against your will. So there are organizations out there that seek out people who are a match to the organizational experience. In fact, I was just watching on Apple TV about a yoga network. This documentary was called Twisted Yoga, and it's about a yoga network that has connections. I want to be careful about the allegations because this court case is still proceeding, but there are apparent connections between this yoga network and a guru in, I believe it's Romania, who encourages women to lure other women to his home where he can have sex with them. And that whole environment in which that happens is very controlling, very coercive, and very disempowering for the women that get sucked into that experience. This is the latest in a series of experiences I've seen on YouTube and other places that illustrate why people are concerned when someone makes seemingly extraordinary promises about what's possible, especially in the spiritual realm. So I get it, how people might feel concerned that they don't want to get involved in a cult, or they don't want to support a cult, or they don't want others getting involved in a cult. So I get the concern, and that's why I'm doing this video, this live, as the first in the live series. So let's talk about, there are two things I want to talk about relative to the question whether or not Positively Focused is a cult. And the first thing I want to talk about is the nature. I kind of talked about it a minute ago, the nature of the word cult. And then I want to talk about how sociologists approach determining whether or not a religious or a spiritual group is a cult. It is a coercive, high control organization. That's what the sociologists call it. High control organizations. They distinguish between high control organizations and ordinary spiritual or coaching communities. And I strongly believe that Positively Focused falls into the latter, the ordinary spiritual or coaching community. It doesn't even fall into the realm of community because there's no community that my clients join. This is a client practice, very similar to, not very similar, but somewhat similar to a therapy relationship, except we approach this material from a very different set of assumptions. My point is, there's no community that people join, and there's no leader that exists here. However, as I said in the description of this live, clients often come with expectations that I am going to lead them somewhere, or that I have some sort of special knowledge. And while it's true that I have special knowledge, the knowledge that I have, I use to empower the individual, to enable the individual to experience leadership in their own life. Sovereignty, I call it. Sovereignty, leadership, authority, creative control over their life experience. By definition, if I'm encouraging people to find their own creative control over their lives, there's no way that I can control them. However, like I said, clients sometimes come to this conversation, and that's what it is. It's not a community, it's a conversation. And they look to me and sometimes they look to me to be on a pedestal and sometimes put me there. And every time they do that, I make absolutely certain to disabuse them of that tendency. I am not special in their lives. I'm special in my life, but I am not special in their life. They are the ones that they should be putting on the pedestal. And that's what I talk about with regard to the order of operation. If you've watched my videos, you know that the order of operation represents the 3 top priorities anyone should have in their lives in order for their life to go the way they want to. And if you listen to what I'm about to say, you'll see that I'm not in the top 3 priorities in their lives. The first priority is their relationship with their broader perspective. The second priority is their relationship with their emotions. And the second priority is there because it helps with the first priority. The third priority is their relationship with themselves. Everything else comes after that. So if that's the basis of this practice, the order of operation, then there's no way I can be on a pedestal for my clients. And I'm not. So let's take a little closer look at what these two things are, what a cult is, and then we're going to look a little bit closer at the characteristics of high control organizations. So the definition I particularly want to focus on here is number 1 and number 3. So number 1 is a relatively small group of people having beliefs or practices, especially relating to religion, that are regarded by others as strange or sinister or as imposing excessive control over members. So if you heard what I've talked about so far, there's none of that going on in Positively Focused. And then number 3, a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So if you listen to that definition, I'm going to read it again. A system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So I discourage anyone who attempts to venerate or devote themselves to me. What I do encourage them is to devote themselves to themselves as individuals, and thereby gain the empowerment and the sovereignty that is naturally theirs, that was there when they decided to come into this life experience. And so there's no sort of veneration or devotion encouraged among my clients. And notice I'm calling them clients, not followers, not community members. They are clients who are paying for a service. There's no devotion or veneration upon me that is encouraged upon them to devote or venerate me. So that's one reason why this is not a cult. Now so that's taking a look at the social application of the word cult. Let's now look at what sociologists defined these high control groups. So this is obviously an artificial intelligence answer. I asked artificial intelligence to provide me a definition of a cult. And you can see a cult is a social group defined by its unorthodox, extreme, or fringe beliefs and practices, often revolving around a charismatic leader. These groups frequently use manipulative techniques, including isolation, coercion, and thought reform, to exploit members financially, emotionally, or physically. Cults typically demand absolute devotion and isolate members from the outside world. Now, it's interesting. This definition is interesting, and I'll come back to this slide in a second, but this is interesting because not only is there no coercion, there's no isolation that I encourage clients to undertake to separate themselves from their lives. I do encourage them to not look at the news, and that's because a lot of the news carries a lot of negative momentum, and that has the tendency to affect clients' vibration in an unhelpful way. But it's interesting about this isolation thing because many of my clients, because of the results they've gotten, have shown up to their family members in ways that have caused the family members to become clients. Notice I didn't say to join, because there's nothing they can join. But they've seen fantastic results among their family members and want the results that their family members got as clients. And so they become clients. And so I have several families, mothers, husbands, siblings, who are participating as clients in this practice. And so this definition is describing isolation. So members are cut off from family, friends, and society. That is not happening at all with my clients. Of course, the authoritarian leadership is absent in the positively focused practice also, because I'm not trying to assert my authority on any client. I'm essentially, what happens, you guys, when people become a client, and I say this all the time in my sessions with clients, they are setting the agenda. They come with some sort of expectation, a problem, or a desire, and I work with the client to enable that person to solve the problem or to realize the desire. And along the lines, I offer the positively focused framework, and they can take on as much or as little as they want, as long as they pay me the session fee. So some clients, like a client who's about to end his practice in April because he's gotten what he's wanted, he hasn't done hardly any of the positively focused framework. And yet through our conversation, he has achieved a state, he called it this himself, he achieved a state of self-realization as a person who is, he doesn't like this word, who is queer instead of straight. And as a result of that, he was able to embrace a relationship he found himself in that was confronting him with a lot of resistance because of his existing beliefs. We moved through our conversations over the last year with him hardly doing any of the practice, and yet he still realized the result that he wanted. Now, this is partly because I am a very high vibrating individual, and I do have the ability to influence people's vibration, but not in an authoritative way. Whenever a client comes to the session, they are leading the session, and I provide information based on what it is they're talking about. So I tell them in session that they are leading the session because they are. And so with regard to this authoritarian leadership, there is no authoritarian leadership because the clients are leading the sessions. Okay, let's talk about coercion and mind control, the use of high pressure tactics and indoctrination to control behavior and thinking. So in the positively focused practice, I am not attempting to control behavior and thinking. What I am attempting to do is encourage my clients to gain control, for them to gain control over their thinking and behaving so that they can create the lives they love. And that's what happens. And so, but as I said a minute ago, they're leading the sessions. So they can take as long as they want to gain control of their thinking, or they can do it in as little time as they want. Well, that's not actually true because it takes time to reduce resistance. And so it's not an instantaneous practice. But the point is, I am not in control of whether or not clients are thinking or behaving in a certain way. My job is to offer information that can radically transform my clients' lives, and then it's up to the clients to take that information and use it to their advantage or not. Some do, some don't. And that's a good point to stop on here and make a point of. So sometimes I perceive a client is wasting their money because they're not moving forward in the conversation. And when that happens, sometimes I do fire clients. I tell clients very gently, in very tactful ways, that they're not getting their money's worth and it's best for them to go someplace else. Sometimes clients choose to leave on their own initiative. And whether I let clients go or whether they self-select, they are totally free to leave, and they're free to come back. I had a client return to being a client after 3 years of being absent because he said there was no one else who has transformed his life in a positive way the way he had transformed his life through the positively focused practice. So with regard to coercion and control, there's none of that going on. I'm encouraging clients to attain sovereignty, liberation, so that they can create the lives that they love. Now, as far as exploitation is concerned, it says here, remember, there are no members in Positively Focused, they're just clients. Members are often pressured to give money, time, or labor to benefit the leadership. So there are, from time to time, circumstances when clients give me gifts. I call those manifestations of my desire. I do not seek those things out. They give them of their own initiative. I'm going to be doing a Worthiness Wednesday episode here shortly to describe one of those manifestations. But when those people do those things, they're doing those things out of their appreciation for the transformation they received. I'm not encouraging that they do those things. I'm not asking that they do those things. And none of my clients meet me in person. So there's no way for me to coerce their behavior or get them to do things on my behalf. All of our conversations happen online. And so there's no community to join. And so as a result of that, I can't pressure them to give me money or to give me time or labor to benefit me. The only money that they're required to give me is the session fee, which is $75 generally across the client membership, the group of clients. Lastly, lack of transparency. So this definition says secretive practices and difficulty for members to leave. So there are practices that I have distinguished as advanced practices and practices that are available at the mastery level. But the reason why I gate those practices at those levels is because if I were to try to teach those practices to beginning clients, they don't have enough evidence that what we talk about in the spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works, they don't have enough evidence with that to be able to believe that this practice that's reserved for the advanced practice or the master level practice will work. If I were to tell them what they were, they would scoff and probably leave the practice. And so as clients move through the practice, they're introduced to more and more, let's call it, complex techniques and practices, which enable them to achieve higher states of awareness. I think you can understand that that's probably true for every spiritual organization. And so, yes, there are secret practices, but they become not secret once the client reaches a stage where I believe they're ready to receive them. And those things are offered freely to the degree that the clients are up to date on their session fees. So to round out this definition, it says, while often associated with religious, spiritual, or philosophical movements, cult is also used to describe groups focused on a particular person or goal, cult of personality. The term is often used pejoratively, but in psychology, it frequently refers to groups that cause psychological harm to members. I'm glad I read that paragraph because this is important. So far in my client practice, not a single client has expressed having experienced harm through the techniques I offer my clients. In fact, every client has expressed varying levels of extreme benefit they have received as a result of being clients. Their lives have transformed, and as evidence of that transformation, their family members become clients. And so it's interesting that this practice is so effective, and evidence of that effectiveness is that the clients keep voluntarily coming back for more. I'm laughing now because I'm about to wrap up this live, and it's interesting that I'm talking about and had read that paragraph because I'm about to play a video for you that perfectly puts the cherry on top of everything that I've said here. So I'm going to play this video of Aaron from a session some time ago, who is describing his experience of the positively focused practice. And he speaks kind of quickly, so you'll have to listen closely. But he gets to a point toward the end of this clip that puts the cherry on top of this session. So let's take a listen to what Aaron has to say. It's really good.
It's one thing to have this practice under your belt, but when you're surrounded by people who have it, holy fuck, dude.
And then like you as the one, like I just it's got to be an interesting dynamic for you, because I can't imagine, like, do you have a lot of other people where it's like their whole family's like in the practice?
I have a few more. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Like,
Yeah.
for some reason I kept thinking we were like the only one where it's like we're all
No.
like intertwined.
No.
And
No.
okay.
No. No.
Well, anyway, it's still probably cool from your perspective.
It's very cool.
Because you saw us all way back when we were little kids, but then you saw us all at the beginning of working with you. And gosh, man, I want to like share this from the mountaintops. Like, I get so excited. Like, I'm just like, oh, like, get this practice in your life, get this practice in your life. But it really is a becoming. Like, they almost have to be ready to come to the table to do this.
Right. That's exactly right.
Different. So you can't really force anybody, but that's just me. I'm always like, dude, you need the practice. You need the practice. You want better? You need the practice. Like, we all fucking need this shit. Like, you don't understand that. It's so epic and it's so unique to you. It's not like some cult where it's like you are all molded.
Exactly.
Like, no, it's actually like, how more individual can you express yourself?
That's exactly right. It's the opposite of a cult.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's so funny, man. 8 months ago, April did the exact same thing you just did. She was like, I just love this shit. I just want to go. And you need to practice and you need to practice. She did the exact same thing.
My microphone was on mute. So Aaron summed it up perfectly. This practice is highly effective. So effective that people want to evangelize, tell their friends and families about the benefits they're getting. And I tell clients like Aaron here and his sister April, the best way to have people get the benefits you're getting is by letting your life experience, your lived experience, speak louder than any words you can give. People are watching you anyway. And so when they see your life radically transform, I tell them, they will want the practice. But if you go and try to use your mouth to encourage people to practice, then you just come off like a door-to-door evangelist or a Jehovah's Witness or something like that. It's best to let your life experience do the teaching. And that's what most of my clients, all of my clients whose families are participating, their families are participating because they've seen the benefits show up in their family member's life. So, is positively focused a cult? Absolutely not. It has none of the hallmarks of what does the sociologists call it? It has none of the hallmarks of high control groups. There's no authoritarianism. People are free to come and go. There's no attempt to isolate people. There's no attempt to control their personal lives. It is simply a client practice. It's a practice where people come and in a one-on-one conversation get the benefit of being, as Abraham says, tuned in, tapped in, and turned on to the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works. And when they do that, their lives catch fire and they find themselves in sovereign joy. That's so good. All right, this wraps up the live for this Sunday. Perhaps I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.